glad you could join us for our series as we continue Blood Brothers, the story of the sons of Jacob from the city of Seattle, the home of the Super Bowl champion Seattle Seahawks. Every family has a story, and it involves betrayal and jealousy, favoritism, and silent pain. And the good news is that God tells his story through a family that is probably more complicated than yours and mine. Last week we ended with Joseph turning away from his brothers to weep. He heard them say in Hebrew, not knowing that he understood, "We are guilty concerning our brother." They're words he's waited 22 years to hear. But he also wasn't ready to forgive. So he put Simeon in prison and sends them back to Canaan. And we talked about how we don't need the people who hurt us to understand for us to heal. But this week we see that the brothers do need to face their guilt, because you can't heal what you won't acknowledge. So this is part 14 of our series, and this message is called Silver and Shame. And before they leave Egypt to go back to Canaan, Joseph does something that is part brilliant and part painful. In verse 25 of chapter 42, it says, "Then Joseph gave orders to fill their bags with grain, to return each man's money to his sack, and to give them provisions for the journey. So it was done for them." So Joseph orders fill their bags with grain that they paid for, that they came for, but replace every man's money, put it in their sack of grain, and give them provisions for the journey home. And on the surface, I think this looks like generosity. But I think it's really payback. Joseph isn't torn between two emotions. He's not wrestling with forgiveness at this point. He's in full revenge mode as I read the text. And the silver is the most interesting and the most painful part of the test for his brothers. I mean, you remember back, we've talked about it, how back in Genesis 37, the brothers sold Joseph for 20 shekels of silver, and they sat down to eat bread while he screamed from the pit. And they took the money, they dipped his robe in goat's blood, and then lied to their father, and continued that lie for the next 22 years. Now Joseph is giving them their silver back, secretly, without their knowledge, and it's hidden in their grain bags. This is, I think, an intentional parallel on the part of the author. It's like what Joseph is actually saying to his brothers is, here's your blood money. Will you take it and run again and betray your brother? Or will you come back for your brother, Simeon? And like we talked about last week, we said that Joseph is really recreating Genesis 37 for his brothers, right? Then it was abandon Joseph in the pit, take the 20 shekels, go home and lie. Now it's abandon Simeon in prison, take the silver back, go home, and what are they going to do? Like, what will you do? Will they do it again? That's the test. The silver makes them criminals. If they keep it, they're thieves, just like Joseph said they were. Accuse them of being. If they return to Egypt, they could be accused of stealing. Either way, they're trapped. Will they abandon Simeon like they abandoned Joseph? Or will they risk everything? Return the silver, bring Benjamin, and face possible execution for theft? See, I think Joseph wants them to feel the terror he felt, the abandonment. He wants Benjamin, the only other brother who didn't betray him, the only one left from his mother, Rachel, and he can do without the rest of them. This isn't reconciliation, it's reenactment. Joseph sends them away with grain to survive, silver to implicate them, and Simeon is in prison to force their hand. And he gives them a command: bring your younger brother, or never see Simeon again. It's payback, disguised as provision. The brothers, of course, don't know any of this. All they know is Simeon's in prison, and Benjamin is required, and they're leaving Egypt with grain and a growing sense that something is terribly wrong. Genesis 42, verse 26, it says, "Then they loaded their grain on their donkeys and left from there. And as one of them opened his sack to give fodder to his donkeys at the lodge, he saw his money, and behold, it was in the opening of his bag." And there it is. The silver that he used, whichever brother it is, he used to pay for the grain in Egypt, how did it get there? I mean, either way, it's really bad. Plus, it's not hidden at the bottom. It's not buried under the grain. It's right there at the top, visible, undeniable, impossible to miss. Verse 28, so he said to his brothers, my money's been returned. Look, it's in my bag. And their hearts sank. In Hebrew, it's vayetze lebam. It's literally their heart went out. Their hearts left their bodies. They were paralyzed with fear. It's a Hebrew idiom, and it describes the physical sensation of terror as your heart leaves your body. It's that spasmodic, gut-wrenching feeling of sudden shock. Why? Because the vizier of Egypt called them liars and thieves. This silver is evidence of theft. And even if they're innocent, it's indefensible. And on a deeper level, I think the silver is also so haunting to them. It's following them. They can't escape it. This silver, right there in the mouth of the grain sack, stares at them like a witness of their sin. Physics tells us that if you put an object like a silver coin in a bag of light grain and you shake it like a donkey journeying for days, that silver doesn't sink to the bottom. It's called granular convection. It's the movement that actually forces the heavy foreign object to the surface. And just like the silver in a bag of grain, the past won't stay buried. You think you can bury a heavy secret under the daily grain of your life. You think if you just keep piling on more work, more years, more mundane activities, the weight of what you did will stay at the bottom. But life has a way of shaking the bag. And when the road gets bumpy, the things that don't belong eventually rise to the top. And the brothers didn't find the silver because they went looking for it. They found it because under pressure, the truth rises to the top. And notice the question they ask in fear. It's the theological center of this entire chapter. Trembling, each one turned to his brother and said, "What is this that God has done to us?" See, they don't know that Joseph has a hand in this. They only see God's hand, and they assume God is punishing them. And honestly, well, they're not entirely wrong. God is at work. Just not the way they think he's at work. Yes, they're experiencing consequences. Yes, the past is catching up to them. But God isn't just punishing them. He's exposing them. He's softening them. He's preparing them for reconciliation. The silver won't let them forget. They're going to have to tell their father the truth about Egypt. And God will not let this family stay broken. Joseph thinks he's orchestrating payback, and God is orchestrating redemption. The brothers make the long journey home, and they're rehearsing what they'll tell their father. This conversation has to be terrifying for them because for 22 years, they've watched their father grieve Joseph's death and said nothing. But now, they can't lie anymore. Because Simeon is in an Egyptian prison. Because the Egyptian official has demanded Benjamin. Because if they don't tell the truth, their family's going to starve. Verse 29, it says, when they came to their father Jacob in the land of Canaan, they told him all that had happened to them. In Hebrew, the verb is nagad, which is to declare, to announce, to make known. It's the same word used when you bring a report to a king or to testify before a judge. This is official testimony. And notice what they say, what it says. They told him all that had happened. Not some, not the parts that make them look good. All of it. Why the shift? Well, it's not because they suddenly became the men they weren't before. They're telling the truth because they have no other choice. The truth is coming out, not because they want it to, but because circumstances are forcing it. And really, this is often how confession works. We don't confess because we're noble. We confess because we're cornered. And they continue and tell Jacob what the vizier said in verse 30. The man, the Lord of the land, spoke harshly with us and took us as spies of the land. Notice how they describe Joseph. In fact, they describe him this way 3 times. The man, the Lord of the land. They emphasize his power, his authority, and his harshness. Why? Because I think they're setting up their defense. We had no choice. This man was too powerful. We had to leave Simeon. We have to bring Benjamin. It's not our fault. It's his. In some way, they're still protecting themselves. They're still managing the narrative. They're still trying to control how their father sees them. Verse 31, but we said to him, we're honest. We've never been spies. There's the phrase again. We're honest men. They said it to Joseph in Egypt, and now they're repeating it to Jacob at home. But think about the irony. They're claiming to be honest men while standing in front of their father that they've been lying to for 22 years. Now, they've never been spies. That part is true. But honest men? I mean, that's a stretch. I mean, Jacob's lived with them since they were young, and we've read in Genesis about some of the things that these brothers have done. And here they are, reporting everything that happened. And they said to him in verse 32, we told him we're 12 brothers, sons of our father. And remember from last week, they don't use the Hebrew word for 12. They use the words Shanaim Asar, which is 2 and 10 brothers. The family has always been fractured into two groups. The 10 standing before Joseph, the sons of Leah and the handmaids, and the 2 sons of Rachel, Jacob's beloved wife, Joseph and Benjamin. They can't say we're 12 brothers as a unified whole because the division is so deep. They unconsciously reveal it in how they count themselves. And then they say this phrase again, the one is no more, and the youngest is with our father in the land of Canaan. It's the same phrase they used in Egypt. They don't say Joseph. They don't say our brother. They just say one is no more. I mean, I guess they're not telling Jacob the whole truth because they still don't tell their father what they did to Joseph 22 years ago. And they still can't say his name, even now. Even while reporting to Jacob, they're telling the truth about Egypt, but they're still hiding the truth about Joseph. Partial truth, still deception. So the brothers continue their report to Jacob, and they say, then the man, the Lord of the land, said to us, by this I'll know if you're honest. Leave one of your brothers with me, Simeon, and ask for the hunger of your homes. Take the grain and go. Then bring your youngest brother to me, so that I may know you are not spies, but that you are honest, and I'll give you back your brother, and you can move about freely in the land. I mean, you hear the echo. We talked about it last week. In chapter 37, it was leave Joseph in the pit, go home with the silver, lie to your father. Now it's leave Simeon in prison, go home with the grain, and tell your father what? So Joseph's brothers have to tell Jacob, if we don't bring Benjamin, Simeon stays in prison forever. And we can never go back for more grain. The truth is unbearable. Simeon in prison, Benjamin must go to free him. If they don't comply, the family starves. It's an impossible situation, and it's all their fault. They created this mess 22 years ago. Now the consequences are coming home. But here's what's different. This time they're not lying. They're still managing the narrative, still protecting themselves, but at least they're not making up stories. And that's the beginning of something new. Confession doesn't happen all at once. It happens in stages like it does in the story. The brothers confess to each other in Egypt. We're guilty. That's stage 1. Stage 2 is now we're reporting truthfully to our father. Not the whole truth, but they're not lying about Egypt. And 3, which will come soon in the next few chapters, a full confession and reconciliation with Joseph. The brothers aren't fully transformed yet, but at least they're choosing truth over lies and reality over deception. Verse 35. Now, when they were emptying their sacks, behold, there was each man's bundle of money in his sack. And when they saw their money bundles, they and their father, they were afraid. Nahum Sarna, in his commentary, points out a brilliant Hebrew wordplay here. The narrator uses two verbs that sound almost identical to describe the moment. And those verbs are vayiru, which is and they saw, and vayira'u, and they were afraid. Now, these two words have different Hebrew roots, but they sound almost identical. It's an auditory echo linking sight to terror. They see, they fear. It's instantaneous, it's reflexive, and it's involuntary. And because of their suppressed guilt, the mere sight of the silver is immediately interpreted as divine judgment. This is what guilt does. It turns every observation into an accusation. It turns every sight into a threat, and every moment into a reckoning. The brothers don't just see the silver. They see evidence. They see judgment. They see the past coming back. For the Lord, it's no longer about Joseph recognizing them. It's about the brothers finally seeing themselves. But it's not just the guilty brothers who are afraid. Jacob is also afraid. Shame is a master of disguise. It makes the victim feel like the villain. It's as if Joseph, still in disguise, is saying to his brothers, that silver that you got when you sold me has not disappeared, but it testifies to the truth of what happened. And friends, it takes a lot of work to keep trying to hide sin. And it always rises to the top. The brothers see the silver and feel guilt because of the sin they committed. And Jacob sees the silver and feels fear because he will have to send Benjamin. I mean, Jacob didn't sell Joseph. He didn't put the money in the sack, but he's paralyzed by the sight of the silver also. Because sometimes you carry silver in your bag that you didn't put there. It's the shame of a trauma you didn't cause. The weight of a secret you've been forced to keep. Shame is a master of disguise. It convinces the one who was robbed that they're the one who is guilty. And so Jacob lashes out with devastating words in verse 36. It says, then their father Jacob said to them, you have made me childless. The Hebrew word is shikalatem. It means to make childless, to rob of children. It's a brutal, devastating word. And Jacob uses it as an accusation. You have done this to me. Joseph is no more. Now Simeon is gone. And next you'll take Benjamin. To Jacob, his life is a series of subtractions. But while he's counting what he's losing, God is counting what he's multiplying. Jacob is worried about the one, Benjamin, but God is preserving the 12 to become a nation. And for the brothers, they hear their father say, you've made me childless as you took Joseph from me, you liars. But of course, he doesn't even know the truth to say those words. They know the truth. They know what they did. They know they took Joseph from Jacob. They did make Jacob childless 22 years ago when they sold Joseph into slavery. And the brothers are standing there carrying the weight of a secret that's crushing them. And Jacob continues and he says, everything is against me. The Hebrew here literally means all things are against me. Jacob feels like God is conspiring to destroy him. He doesn't see God's hand working for restoration. The only thing he can see is loss after loss after loss. Why are these things happening to me is what Jacob is asking. And it's similar to the question the brothers ask in verse 28. What is God doing to us? And here's the tragic irony. Jacob has no idea that Joseph is still alive. He doesn't know that God is orchestrating restoration, not destruction. He doesn't know that his lost son is the second command of Egypt being used by God to save his family and the whole world. God is not subtracting from Jacob, but Jacob just can't see it yet. He doesn't know that all of his sons are alive, that his family will not only be restored, but that he even has grandchildren who were born to Joseph in Egypt. Jacob can't see what we can see. He's trapped in his grief. He's blind to God's larger story. And here's where we need to pause, because if we're not careful, We'll read the story like spectators, shaking our heads at Jacob's lack of faith and at the brothers' deception. We sit in judgment. How could they not believe? How could they not trust God? We'll think, if this were happening to me, I'd handle it so much better. But that's not why this story is in the scriptures. This story is not just about this family and these people. Tim Mackey said in his class on Joseph from the Bible Project, these are realistic portrayals of human behavior, motive, and psychology. This is all about the human story. When we feel superior to these characters, we're probably not understanding what the story is trying to say about us. This isn't ancient history. This is your story. If you think, I would never do what these brothers did, you're missing the point. So let's stop reading this as their story and start reading it as ours. Because the silver in their sacks, you have your own version of it. And here's what we know. The past won't stay buried until you face it. What's the silver that keeps showing up? You can't outrun it. You can only face it. Confession is the only way to stop the cycle, because it's where healing begins. The second is unresolved grief poisons the present. That thing you're hiding, your spouse feels it, your kids sense it, the people around you know. The weight you carry alone becomes a wall. And hiding grief poisons everything. The third is we have to trust the pressure. When pressure builds, God is being surgical. He's taking apart your false securities to give you something real. The pressure isn't against you. It's for you, because God is for you. And the fourth is we have an opportunity to choose a new path. God brings us back to the scene of our failure, not to shame us, but to give us a chance to choose differently. Repentance is a pattern of small choices repeated over time that prove transformation is real. So what is God doing when he brings old sin and shame to light? He's not exposing you to destroy you. He's exposing you to heal you. He's forcing what's been buried to the surface, because buried things don't heal. They just rot. And these four truths are not just abstract principles. They're the path God is walking you down right now. And here's what it comes down to. If last week I said what my counselor said to me is you don't need the people who hurt you to understand for you to heal, then this week adds, you cannot heal as long as you are hiding the silver. You cannot heal if you're hiding a secret, if you're hiding shame. Whatever it is that you're keeping buried, whether that silver is guilt from what you did or shame from what's been done to you, God loves you too much to let it stay buried. He will help you see it, not so that you'll be afraid, but so that you can come boldly before his throne. Friends, God isn't playing games with your pain. He's not trying to trap you. He's trying to free you. And the silver in the sack isn't there to condemn you. It's there to call you home. I love you guys. And I can't wait to see you next week as we continue this series.